그래서 그것이 저기 류이들라 류이디 뭐요 거네 지나 또 삼다와 있는 좀 류이디 아니 지게 샤타 지게 샤다 루고나 차다 빠바로 소바 차산 소비 소바 지리 내나서다 아니 기지 규어조 조조리 해서지 당 뭐요 거네도 류이디 뭐 가요 말해서 이내다 한 저기 류이들 된주 류이된 될라 류이된现在没这位给科学要不修学了，第个是那绿电带来电呢，那台巴谈天气天气各方面，主要年们现在接头也给电开发真的下来了是，这在电现在当然这个绿电的电开发真的电的，那这个必须要不当然个要把的呀，那对那电比个必须当我的是，但电现在的绿的呀，这个那这个那么就绿起来恰线节那。多个龙觉了说吧，马英把这，那绿了呀，人把咱们这呢，多个必须当这绿的点的了呀，给予你们刚土的主国的事情说，可是对对进入的，变成对了两岸今年的写的，两岸去写的，绿了呀，多个人把咱们发，这境界，但那人给对这都出色的，但是人给对，甚至他们觉得上有个方特别吃多，那。我都现在必须结果来设计，我可是样子的那个安迪过去是吧
Good evening. So last week we continued to look at this body that we have, coming to try and gain a more balanced perspective on this body, so as to overcome the blindness that comes from our attachment. So we recognize that this body, underneath the veneer that this skin produces, really is quite unpleasant. We think of various flesh and muscle and sinews and substances all crammed together within this sack of flesh. This body that amounts to not much more than a broth of meat. And recognize that not only is it something that just beneath the surface is really not at all desirable, but its situation is not at all stable. It is changing momentarily. And this is despite how we grasp at it, wanting it to be stable. And we recognize this in just how easily we become ill. Just a small cause, and immediately our mind can be overwhelmed with pain from physical suffering. So this is the reality of our current situation. We've looked at a number of verses recently making this point. And last week, we also then came in the 69th verse to recognize it does not have to be like this. This is the only body, the only type of body we've ever known, a body that changes and is subject to suffering. But it does not have to be like this. There is a body that comes from pure karma, a body that is beyond suffering, a body of a being that is liberated from cyclic existence. That is the body that, when attained, one is beyond the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death. One will never suffer in any way again. So last week, we looked at how we must make this body serve our aims right now. And what is the meaning of serving our aims? It is, or rather, how is it that one serves one's own aims? It is through helping others. Through developing ourselves in order to be of ever more benefit to others, we help ourselves too. So this is the point we came to last week, having challenged our attachments and our blindness from this attachment, to recognize what this body is in essence, but then to recognize it does not have to be this way, so as to commit to utilizing this incredible foundation that we have, this precious human body, to utilize it to accumulate the causes so that we can continue a rapid progression towards attaining a body that is beyond suffering. Tonight we conclude this subsection, which is in the overall section of ethically accumulating virtuous qualities, and we look here at how we can use this body to accumulate virtue in order to become a Buddha and a great servant to others. The 70th verse. Regard the body as a boat, a simple support for going and returning. Transform the body into that which fulfills every wish in order to accomplish in order to accomplish the welfare of each sentient being. So the order of the English and the Tibetan in this verse is not quite the same, so we start with the second line. This body should be seen as a simple support for coming and returning, or for coming and going.
that part two one ne ju de le de ne chu ong ko ro che san lui di din na xin che da dang de ge nam gal ba do ba ne dan nam ju le dian je ni sa ji xian ji ne xian ji le pa zhu hu ro de chu ong ne nam ju le dian je sa ji xian ne chu yong ko ro a din na xin ma zu lui di da da ma zu ge so le pa ge so de ne pa ro zhuo ne de ne ge zhu na xin da sa ji de ne nam don pa你实际现在做完的能做哪些的？实际的，就是绿的来点两个就跑出中央去或者绿的，然后都是呢中央去给点怎么来实际中。
And this is the case. If we are to go anywhere or return from anywhere, we have to utilize our body. It is through our body that we can come and go. And furthermore, now for us in English, the first line, we should regard the body as a boat. Because a boat is a vessel, an indispensable vessel for crossing an ocean. So these days, perhaps we don't go on boats too often, more likely an aeroplane. And a plane is required in order to travel to a distant state or country. So we'd utilize these days more likely a plane to go from here to there, or to return from there to here.
Kowe ne tele zhe che ya sanji se le zhuo ba de la yang lu de le dian de zhuo hu le che de da lu de le dian de zhuo xie de ka suo se ne an zu lu de le dian de ge wei nian ren zhu che ge wa zhu de ne di guo pong che an de san yu guo pong to guo yin za an zu lu de le dian ne ya sanji se la kowe dong le zhe che ya sanji se le zhuo de yang an de zu lu le dian de zhuo hu le xie che song guo ro che san de lu le.
And the reference here to going refers to going beyond samsara. So one requires a body such as this by which to go beyond samsara. And the actual boat is the accumulation of virtue, the development, the transformation of our mind. And where is this distant destination we are going to? It's either that of liberation from samsara or Buddhahood itself. To achieve that, to attain such a state, we require a body as this to accumulate extensive virtue. This is the means by which we go beyond suffering to a state freed of suffering, that of liberation or enlightenment.
And this is my true setting and the Shila in my num drew said that they did drew the language. Korea Dunga just daily dredge, Sanye Sala Drag, Drosaki Jun, Drag, Della Dinner draw, and they did drew Lusha or said, Dambo 60 Disung Rajazada, Kawane Kawa Drag, drew Lusha or Drues, that drew Lusha did drew some go race or whatever. Now to do Drosaki. Modern Mason did as some roda, Chesna Jason didn't about also do did as Numdu de pardon, Numdu did as a summit. Chesada Korea Dunga Jesu de Luge, Sanye Salago, Gopang, Sanye Salatroyala, leading as the Drew Delia Droya, Drunashi, and begin some Dango regere.
Here we need to embark on this boat, on a journey, and this journey is traveling towards the distant destination that is beyond the sufferings of samsara. So we want to go beyond, travel beyond our current suffering state within samsara to a state gone beyond suffering, a state of liberation from suffering.
Do lo shawores, do lo shawers. Kawa drag to Sanye Salogo, Sanye Salo, Korea Dungal, Dredge, Delia Dross Dredge, and Sanye Sal Droyala, Druna Shinti Ludires, and be some showers, Lula, do lo shates at this one.
And this body is the boat that is traveling towards that destination of Buddhahood.
That do lo shades, lo showers, and that lo shadadi. Do Lusha and Druria Sampe some Digo Marada, Takarsuk Donda Karsung or Sene. Chesada, Manzu Lui Telatene, and Lui Diten Telea, and Jamni Jokom, Chanju Semgo, Chanju Semikunela, Tene, Passion Dugi, Yamlin Che, and Dusin Yamlin Java Latine, Ludin Della Yamlin Che, 2 Gores, Benin Song Ludina, Yawada, Ida, the Dundu Ludina, and the Niki Yamlin Che to Yomares. Chesada Anzu Ludin, me Ludin, Tenju Ludin, Den Della. And the Jamni Jocomiata, Chanjo Simbi, Gunela with Honey, Jimbado Children, something, share up Yamlenche 2 Gores, Chesan the Yamlenche 2 by the Yamlen Jebalatin, San Yocomo top 2 Gores, Chesan Dine the Drew Losha said, Cangelem, San Yocomo Tobala, Tin Chodo Gubad, Ludin de Dide, Sambege, the Ding and Zugeda, how go away. Tone, the Imba Hako, Tone, Sosugi Digalia, and the Delatine, Ludin Delatin and Yamnichen, Tarasan Yokomo Todmado, Shen, Ludin Shanet and the Totu Mariches, Denegeza, dealing Sosugi Ludin Zachim with Denik Top Jobadi, and Delia, and Yamnan Karit, Yamnichi San Yokomo Top 2 already, and Zangi, Din Dele Yamnin. Tarshimba Chigin Sembig, some Tango race or that on the Drew Losha City, San Diego Bon Tobala, Tin Chodu Cubadi, Yamnije, Tin Chodu Cubadi, Rangi Ludi, Lutin the Yimbadi, Tanju Ludi Yimbad, Hago watch a race or that on the Drew Losha said this or the Hago watch a race, the Hagone, and Tin Telatine, that the puzzle draws a dream by Hagone, Delina Zu or Juicy, that Delatin and Yamlenche or race or Yamlenche 2 Baza, Yamlenche or race as Sungore.
For us, the first line, regard the body as a boat. So if we're going to regard our body as anything, we need to have some knowledge and understanding. So the understanding to cultivate is this clear recognition what this body can achieve. That this body can be put to good use, like a boat, in order to cross an ocean. The ocean that we need to cross is the ocean of the suffering realms of samsara, to travel beyond suffering and attain Buddhahood itself. And to do that, this boat or this vessel needs to cultivate the required causes. So this body that we've attained, or this precious human rebirth, we need to utilize to cultivate genuine love, genuine compassion, and bodhicitta itself, and thereupon the 6 perfections. This is indispensable, and there is no a body or support comparable to this in the 6 realms. This precious human rebirth we have is truly supreme. It is the supreme support to go beyond suffering, to travel to Buddhahood. So this, to regard the body as a boat, requires our recognition of just what can be achieved, and then how to achieve it, and then to do so to set ourselves on this journey.
Tezanda lula tu lo sha de se di donda si rakwa shu bena donda de she rakwa ke bena tezanda rang lu de le ya sangi ye sar joe ge juna shin re sa be sam dang gu re sa ji zik ti na ji sung go da ga je as pa su zhuo wan che ge dian de lu de re tezanda sangi sa lo joe le ya juna shin di nga zu lu de juna shin re sa be ge an sam dang gu re sa ji zik rakwa de she rakwa ke shin di re.
So the rough explanation of these two lines is this body is likened to an indispensable vessel or boat to travel to the goal of Buddhahood.
디 리덴 샹다 미라와 캬바천들이 진짜 리덴 델이야 잠니 제 장주심 냠는 제하다 파진 중에 냠는 차단 제 두고래 진짜 리덴 델라 때네 아니 냠는 제 발레 때네 산요고 톱 두고래 진짜 산요고 방도비 땡 캬바진 리덴디 땡 캬바진들이 산베디 하고와 제고 뭐송 제고 디긴 캬바진 하고와 제 대다디 루투 로샤데 세지스 랑그 리디 땡주 리덴디다 산지고 고방도비 냠는지 땡 캬바진 땡 델이야 아니 산지고 고방도비 냠는 차산 제 두여기 땡 캬바진 힘바데 하고와 제고래서 월다데 류라 류로샤데 세데.
The deeper meaning of these two lines is that independent on this body, this precious human rebirth, I need to cultivate the qualities of love, of compassion, of bodhicitta, and the six perfections. So this needs to be understood. It needs to be understood, the potential of this precious human rebirth, understood to the extent of we need to take it to heart, knowing that this is what we can do, we have the capacity to do, and then set ourselves on this journey.
Semjen tamjige dönder dön 주비 치르도 다 류디 다 류델라 때네 안 저게 semja tamjige 고위 동안에 가서래 류델라 때네 잠니 전주선 파시 주게 냠는지 상기 고번 두고 여봐 이제 땡 켜봐진 된지 여봐 이제 땡델이야 아는 아주 가르쳐 버렸으네 다 semja tamjige dönder 주비 치르도 냠는지 오래서 semja tamjige dönder semja tamjige dön 주비 치르서야 돼 냠는지 오래서 송거로 와다.
Moving on in the verse, so for us in English, we go to the fourth line, in order to accomplish the welfare of each sentient being. So this is the very purpose for ourselves as aspirant bodhisattvas, to set ourselves about utilizing what remains of this life well, so as to accomplish the welfare of each and every sentient being.
지난 심전의 유전급 치르서 심전의 된다데 가래서는 심전 고유 동아 개설을 저제 야 타르도 상기 고방 토바데 심전의 된을 와다 심전 되게 동아 타다래 저 아니 되어 풍선 소바데 띵이 되어도 토바데다 심전의 된다 책으로 와 지난 디 주위에 된다 주위에 치르도 세우라 지난다 장주심 냠솔렌디 잠니지 검제 나 학산 남다기에도 심전 탐제 고유 동아를 저제 상기설을 꾸긴 세트 심전의 된다 뒤로 와지다 지난 심전의 된 세대 가래서는 심전 남기 된 세대 심전 탐지 된다 가래라는 심전 탐지 고유 동아 개설을 저제 타르둑 상기 고방 토야디 띵기 대화 타르둑 토야디 다 토마 토야디 다 심전의 된다 원에디 차들어 와 지난 디 주위에 된다라 아니 냠는지 오래서 송으로 와는.
What does it mean to accomplish the welfare of sentient beings, or to accomplish the welfare of anyone? It means to lead them so that they cross the ocean of suffering and attain their own liberation from suffering. So from what's just been expressed there, you'll recall that is the very meaning of wholehearted resolve, the determination that I will guide all beings from their current suffering state through the process of mental development, which is the crossing of the ocean, to attain the distant shore, the attainment of liberation from suffering. I will do that. So this is the very determination of wholehearted resolve, which is developed then into bodhicitta. And in order to do so, I will become a Buddha. So the very reason for us wanting to utilize this vessel to cross the ocean is in order to benefit all beings.
안다 심지어 남지기 된다 타르도도 주비 치르도 안에 가르쳐 왔어 이신기니 류수 규로 세대 다 이신이 너부 안에 이신이 너부 초도 교바 안에 이신이 너부 세대 상기 요고 반드서 상기 이신기니 류수 규로 세대 다 이신이 너부 나데 초도 교바 안에 상기 요고 류수 규고레스 다스 규고레스데 상가서 소수 류디 냠nen제제 안에 이신 너부 초도 교바 상기 요고디 다 이신 너부 초도 이신 너부 나신 딜레 초도 교바 초도레스 전 딜레 안에 게 자체지 매바레스 지사 디 류디 상기 요고디 간쪽에 류스 나라서 상기 요고르스 규고레스 세데다 상기 요고바 토발 제고레 송고다 이신 샘제 탐지기 된주비에게 된다라 하는 상이 고방 토발 제고 토보를 해서
Now first the third line, transform the body into that which fulfills every wish. So what is it that fulfills every wish? The wish-fulfilling jewel, that is the bodies of a Buddha. This is what we need to transform our body into. There's ordinary contaminated body. We need to transform into the wish-fulfilling jewel that is the bodies of a Buddha. So therefore we need to accumulate those very causes that will lead to the attainment of Buddhahood.
지사다 심징이 된주야기 다 심징이 된주야라 심장 대조 고비 동아를 주 상계 살고야라 고바라 다탑 다 초도 교바디 상계 고반마도 요말해지 상계기 고바디 딜레 라바 메바레스 지사 심징이 된주발라 심젤마 된주 심제 동아세라 심젤마 최된 고로와 최된 발라 아니 최된 셰바 뒤기디나 된셰 뒤당 남바당 최간의 잼베네 심젤레 판도 예대바디 킹게데 상계레스 제네 데네기 된싱바디야 상계레스 제자 딘발라야 균바셰 칸메디 균 탐제단 잡아 상계레스 제자 샘젠 탐제 고유 능을 죄제 네 상기에 살을 꿰발라 다 탑초도 유바디 다 상계 고반레샤 제자다 상계 고반 토고레스 or다 다나 디송으로다.
And then these final two lines, it's through coming to recognize that there is no other guide like a Buddha, that one develops a genuine determination, I have to become a Buddha. Because it becomes very clear to us how difficult it is to transform our own mind and recognize our great limitations in that, as well as to give others the perfect advice in any situation. We know how hard that is. So we have to radically transform our mind, purify it of every fault, develop every good quality, so that we can guide each and every being in whatever circumstance they find themselves in, knowing exactly what to say, what to do, so as to help them gather virtue, accumulate the causes for their own liberation from suffering.
semjen namgyu duen pando tuyala dubigi chedo an sanje ko ba top ne dene semjen gi ba che den an nyamso lenju dene sanje la ya ko ko le so ra da semjen tamji gi duen dubi chedo ishin gi ne lusu gyuru che de semjen tamje kowe 동아를 죄제 상계 살라 꿰고도 디꿰에 된다라야 안에 소소라랑 안에 semjen tamji sanje ko ba toba che고래 해서 숨거든.
So therefore, in order to accomplish the welfare of each and every sentient being, I will transform this body into that which fulfills every wish, namely a body of a Buddha.
제가 류세의 류수교로서 셰스션은 아주 꾸르교로서 상이 꾸르교로에서 상이 꾸델라는 아주 계신 쉬바나 상이 꾸델라 아니 꾸니스 체베네 최고다 최고다 수고세 니체 꾸니스 꾸르교로에서 다 최고다 롱교로에서 그러다 제가 꾸시체베나 아니 저 가서래 오니고데 시추고 롱고다 주고세 구 시르교고스 류수교로세 꾸르교고레세 다 소수게 셈디 아니 최고고 교고레 소수게 류디 아니 수고고 교고레 사치 송고로다 류수교라도아 셰수주나 꾸르교로다 제자다 꾸르교로세데 랑게 셈디 이시추고 교고레 냠렌제제 랑게 류디 수고고 교고레세로 송고로다
You remember last week we spoke about the bodies of the Buddha, and this can be presented in differing numbers. So the common presentations that into two: the Dharmakaya, so the mental states of the Buddha, and the Rupakaya, the bodies, the physical bodies of the Buddha. And it can be also presented as four, with the Dharmakaya being presented in two: the wisdom truth body and the nature truth body, and the Rupakaya, the form body, being presented in the Sambhogakaya or Namanakaya, the enjoyment and emanation bodies. So the mind of the Buddha is transformed and arises as the wisdom truth body, and the body of that the Bodhisattva arises in on the attainment of enlightenment will be that of the Sambhogakaya and Namanakaya.
당한 류데라 때네 산지 고방 톱고고래 제가 디네서 산지에 살 좋아라 류데라 때네 좋고고래 제가 류데라 때네 아는 저기 잠니제 장수 샘 냠소래 냠는제네 아니 지 파신 쪽이 냠는 제반에 땡데라 냠는제 투고래 제가 땡데라 아 저기 단주기 류덴 텔라 때네 아니 냠는 차상제 산지 고방 톱고래 제가 류덴 빼마스 캐브라전지에 샘베게 되네게 하고 와체에서 류를 주셔 러시아 하고 와체 데네 하고 와체네 데네 류덴 데네 쉬어바디 수수라랑게 다 침보 텔라된 톱투고요 봐서 샘전 탐지기 된다래야 샘전 탐지기 있고 동아 판지 주비에 된다래야 수수랑 묘보는 샘제 산지고바 토고그래 산지고바 토고그래서 산지고바 토바체고래스 디 톱네 데네 샘쟁기 된 주고를 주도로 와서 거다 돈다지스 거다 돈다라 만조 류딘디 난주 류딘 자 첨부 디텔이야 탈바다 탐지kimbe 산지고바 주투고여 봐 임바 투고여 봐디 하고 와체 하고네 데네 된델이야 샘제 탐지기 된도 산지고바 토비 체도 잠니제 데네 전에 파진 쪽에 냠는 제네 산요고바 토고그리에서 올다 돈다 디송거래.
Summarize the meaning then of the 70th verse is that this body we should regard it as like a boat, in that a boat is the indispensable vessel to travel across the ocean of suffering and arrive at the distant shore of Buddhahood, and in particular that our destination should be that of Buddhahood. And how to utilize this body as a boat? It is to cultivate all the causes that are required in order to arrive at that distant shore, the shore that is beyond suffering, the shore of Buddhahood. And what are those causes that we need to cultivate? We need to develop the mind of a bodhisattva. And we need to engage in the conduct of a bodhisattva. So all the various causes, such as love, and compassion and wholehearted resolve, need to be developed so that we develop the mind of a bodhisattva. And all the activities or the conduct of a bodhisattva needs to be engaged in, those from ethics to wisdom. All of these need to be engaged in. This is how we put this body, this boat, to work, so that we can travel across, we can go to the distant shore of omniscience. And the very purpose of becoming a Buddha is so that we can then return through it, but in the bodies of a Buddha now, and return in order to help all beings to fulfill their needs. And what does that entail? Skillfully guiding them to cross that same ocean, utilizing their precious human rebirth to cross that same ocean and attain their own liberation.
다 되네기 말씀쟁기 조된 제바 다 되네 돌려야 제대로 룽아 군주의 야고 그래서 군주 세바 치고 제바 주고 그래서 올다 된 마디시고 되다 대다 라왕 유기디 다도 준비 신기 다도 준비 신도기 전여로 모두 용통대 저외 시당 송버기.
Now, still within the same general section of the second of the three types of ethics, ethically accumulating virtuous qualities, we now come to a new sub-outline, that of how to act with others, with these precious beings to benefit. So the 71st verse, having control of myself like that, I will always present a smiling expression completely abandon angry scowls and sullen looks, and be a sincere friend to all migrators.
Deda Rangwa Yugi Des, Deda Shengi, and the Keju Tubalaya, Shenle Pando Tubala, and the Rangi, Lu Ngada, and the Sim, and the Chigi Rangwa Yuba, Rangwa Yukures, Chisanda, Nyomo Big, Deshada, Controla Sobaki Bana, and Digi on the Sombana, the Shawa, Rawa Meba, and the Chichagorwa, the Nezada, Rangi, Luda Ngada, and the Simlia, Rawa Yubi Tone, and the Yubachi or Essage. That are Rawa Yugi, said, Rangi, Luda Ngalia, Rawa Yubas, is that a bit of Cornosana? Kanaba Karishia, but the social Rama Meva, Corsa Damara Tungura, don't get them get the Corsa and don't get them get Damara Tungura. Just that the niggas should Dondala, Rama Yuba, Rama Yu, Chevore, love you do, Condor than new mobile, Shawan the Mason Kugures, Shawan the Mason Kugures, or that is until Lungagi. Rama Yedi until Luda, Ngadi. Rangwa Yuba Kugures, which is a contra than new molas, want to Mason watch Kugures or want to Mason watch.
Drink me. So look in the first line, having control of myself like that. So this is actually expressing a state we aspire to achieve. We have not yet gained control over our body and mind. For example, when meeting required conditions and having the required imprints on the mind, an emotion arises. We have no control over that. So when we meet something that we dislike and we have the imprints of anger on our mind, anger arises. We do not have control over that. And our body then reflects that anger. We tighten up, tense up, our facial expression changes perhaps the color of our skin. This is not something that we currently have control over. We lack freedom.
Rama is a Pinanga Kishe, so Kono Masavana Sim Hulu Yobana, Susugi, my Pajula Kishi can share in a Ninji was shared Susula Rama Yorba, then the show, the show was some Yorba. Corners and the corner bears some Majuasha and didn't. He could see to that Damaraji could Rama was short over. Bendigo and beauty in the Yanjik, Semble Hulu Yubina, Susugi, Ponro that the nigger Mala Semble Hulu in the Yanjik, don't get them Utana, so Canistum and the Sosara Yoruba. That's also corner some Jigmaki was the corner Lang Yudmana, don't them Uta, Sosorama, corner Lang, the corner Yudivaza, the pardon and the beauty, and the Midawa is doing the world. She said that the Rama said, Donala, Captilla, Cargoras, and Condor than Yomo, want to Mason watch Kugure, Mason watch, Sem Huluche, Sem and Sosolia, Sem Delia, just Jamzi, some of the Yovach Kugure, or that Rama said, Rama said, Deniga, some of the Yubitone, and Lungalia, Denigo, some of Kuno, Denis Yogores, or Lungali, Pejitala. Jamba than Zewa. She's the Jamba than Zewa, Uniki shared the Yahoo Ngurua. She's a Rama said, Dondal Kalagor said, Rama Yuba Kiladua, Rama Yu said, the contra the Nomo, Shawan the Masoachi, Semlia, Hule, the Jamje, the Damage Kugures, the New Yobanecus Pasolia, Kisha, and Chiki, Zumatum Batiki, Yahungure said, Rama Yu said, Rama Yu the May said, and that did like Harkuras and Semlia, and the Chiki, Nomo Badash, contra Shawan the Masoa. And the same Lulis, same Jamze, the temperature or Dennis Yuba in the Lungadi, and Beji, I was down to Gures or that.
So this term having control can also be translated as having free will. So therefore, not having control can also be translated as not having free will. And the position that, because I couldn't remember the word in the previous segment, but in the previous segment can also be then expressed that where we are now is we have no free will. When we meet the required conditions and have the required imprints on our continuum, that response just arises. We do not have control over that. So that was about the previous segment. Now, what Geshe has just said. So when you observe yourself, and you see when your mind is relaxed, not only do you feel good inside, but your body displays this. Your facial expression, your way of speaking. Also, your way of handling what life throws at you is very different than when you're angry. When you're angry, not only or let's say upset, when your mind is upset, not only are you suffering, but your body displays that you are upset. The way you speak, the way you act. Also, one really struggles to deal with what life throws at one. So this we recognize from how our mind is how we experience the world so. And this shows how we do not have free will. We cannot just turn ourselves away from one way of thinking and solely be on the other way of thinking, which would be the case if we had control, if we had free will. So that is how things are for us. Here though, in the first line, having control of myself like that, the way to understand this is when one has developed the qualities of love and compassion, for example, within oneself, so that these are dominant minds within one, then one can be said to have control. One still doesn't yet have control, or free will, but one can be said to have it because of the strength of these minds, of love and compassion. The afflictions do not dominate like they do now. They are they struggle to arise. They do not influence us at all to the current degree. So in that sense, when one is dominated by genuine love and compassion, then one could be said to have control of oneself. So that first line.
Just something on the Cuban, just a delay, round you by Jewore, Lavian, Carson or Sene, just that you shut down control of Soba Shuk Chimpo, Jubana, Nisimlia, the same the Lungagi, the Jubati, Namba Chill, chose Bejitan, time of the Yabi, Yacho, Bejitan Tumar, which is that they took or watches Lungagi, Jubati, same Manumo, but want to Shawan Sobena. That round you by Jewore, same Yomo by Shawan the Mason, and the same. Give you some logic want to do enough, they gave a challenge based down to this or just round you by Yisi, Lunga, Jubati, same game, and the guys give you challenge a bitch down to Yagi, Yasal Bejitan, by bitch down to round you want to you about Jewore SH, one call is or that. Dandala, Kulon Delia, Jamzi, Sembi Kulon Langor, Kulon Yogo, or that, Kune Lavena, then is Lunga Jubati, Yapochil bitch down to Gorba. Chesada, Dandala, Rawa Yu, Lunga, Jubala, Rawa Yu, Kulon, Jamzi, Assembly, Kune Langore, said Kuor Dandala.
Our body and our physical behavior and our speech is entirely under the control of our mind. It's our mind that is in charge here. In that, our body will only go where the mind directs it. The body will only do as the mind directs it. Likewise, what we say, how we say it, and so forth, the mind directs. So our current situation is we do not have freedom over this. What arises in our mind, it arises without us having direct control over it or control over it. And in particular, as we are so easily influenced by, or the afflictions arise so easily, that when attachment and anger arise, in particular when they're strong, our body and speech will display that, and will be on the unwholesome side. What we say, how we act, will be on the unwholesome side. But even now, when virtuous minds like love and compassion arise, then the way we act, the way we speak are dominated by those, and therefore we will act on the wholesome side. What is referred to here, having control of myself like that, is when love and compassion not just arise from time to time, but are dominant within one. Therefore, one's speech and behavior are primarily on the side of the wholesome side. So this is the meaning of having control here. It really comes down to one has a motivation of love and compassion. Therefore, one's mind, speech, and behavior are all on the side of virtue. So having control of myself like that. So in other words, having my mind dominated by love and compassion. This is the training. And now the result of this training is that our physical behavior is impacted. How so? The second line. I will always present a smiling expression.
somebody Geshe that trainer don't more bang there. Dao Zumbi Shindu Yi trainer modum Yong Bang there said Gidi in a trainer that don't know what 20 million go marry Gidi in and share and some that you better don't go race.
With one's mind being dominated by love and compassion, the meaning of having control of myself like that, I will, now we can say, not only always present a smiling expression, but will also, the third line now, completely abandon angry scowls and sullen looks. Because in the second and third line, these go together. But what it comes down to is this is the natural expression of a mind that's dominated by love and compassion.
Under the Lugi, Namur de Nature de Nazi, that drew shed on Songburgi, Sedida, Rosemje, Tamjelia, and Zevige, and Ning Yevi, some betones or Ning Yawa. She said that Shazada, Ning Yawa, Ning Yalgore, Jezada, Rosemje, Tamjelia, and Rosemje Kanachine, Desolia, and the Ning Yawa, Shazache, and Dushine, Chegores, and Ngagi, Songburma, City, Kishevene, Jambo, Shawores or Jambo, Junshi, Mikohata, Junshi, and the Chambache, and the Yuji, the name member, and the Kish Jambo Shawores, Jambo and Dushawores.
And the third result of having a mind dominated by love and compassion, now the fourth line, one will be a sincere friend to all migrators. So having a mind of love and compassion, the way you'll relate to others will be as someone who's honest, who's trustworthy, and will have a demeanor of being a helpful friend. So this comes as a result of developing minds of love and compassion.
Jamatan Civi Sembi Gunia Lange, Lugi, Namur Shanlia, get the Dumba, the Duitado, some nada Timbukuni Dungores, Mado, Donga Trainer, Don Nawashi, Mr. Dushin, Sigio Mare, Sage, Dushin. Then, and draw some Jatamjelia, and Jig Bejig, and Jambatan Zewa, Ninyawa, so the Jambat Zewa, Sigurat, Jambatan Civi, some Lange, and Shanlia, Pembe, Sembi Gunia Lange, and Kishevene. And Chick Jambo down, Zubu member, Jambo down, Jambo Shewores, Jambo to Shewores, Nagunjin to Shewores as soon rather.
Developing dominant love and compassion within oneself, these minds within will radiate from you. They'll radiate from you in a manner that is abundantly clear to all those who are in your presence. They will recognize your smiling expression. They'll feel a sense of calm as well as safety in your presence. And your demeanor will be one of a helpful friend, a sincere friend, someone that they can rely on, they can trust. This all comes from developing a mind of love and compassion.
대상다 청년 동 나고되다 종 청년 뒤바 동 나고된 바이나 파주 밀에 가부용 말과 셈마기바 차이로와 아니 셈마기바 차나 안 건설 마기바 차되니 셈야 추직 컨트롤 추 컨트롤라야 바이데 된 셰베네 컨트롤 디바사이고로 디바사주고로와 지산디네 엔자 안셈 신의 숨당데 두스전 제고래 해서 다양직 신리아 제외선배 돈의 신리아 안직 파 잠보당 안에 정부 최고래서 아도 디네게 제와 매반나 안진델이야 안에 차도다 나자다 디네 토베나 직수부시야다 안에게 고거다 얘기 준시야라서 용거와 디네나 샬리야 뉘에시 샬리야 강아지고래 디네게 라야 디버사고래 디자라지니바 디버사고요바 인자 샬리야 샬심자 간디 토베나 델이야 안 수수 제외 삼바 제외 삼닝 예외 삼바당 안 델이야 안 기셰베나 잠보시야다 안 정보시야디도 셰고래 해서지 또 나지 송도
If one's mind is dominated by one's own concerns, one's own problems and worries, then this is going to be shown through one's facial expressions. One may be scowling angrily or having sullen looks. It may have absolutely nothing to do with those around you. It's just because of one's own inner worry and concern. But when others see your expression, they may immediately get defensive, be fearful. And from being defensive, they may well be oversensitive to something that you say or do or your way of speaking, and therefore they get angry, get upset. When you're not meaning anything harsh towards them, you're just not in a good place. And they are fearful and therefore oversensitive, get upset and accumulate non-virtue. In this way, by not taking care of one's own mind, one can inadvertently be a condition for others to create non-virtue. But the converse is also true. If one transforms one's mind so that love and compassion dominates, by having a radiant expression, whomever one encounters, you will benefit them. They may create virtue, at the very least, their suffering will reduce.
Chila soba babjudos, Jadan Jeper Miduros, Goyan Jadu Miete, Atado, and Jumjung Gavarjas.
In a similar vein, the 72nd verse, do not inconsiderately move furniture around noisily. Also, do not violently throw doors open. Rather, always delight in being inconspicuous.
Chila soba babjudo Jadan Jeper Miduro, Sidi, that Chila soba says Susigi Nitila soba denima, Ya Zabada, Ma Babi Kablia, and the Chigi. Babjudo said, Dona Machevache, Nangme Cheche, Odusinma, Chinma, Babia Ducaplea, and she Doxia, Dinea Zavicaliaci, Diniki, Yahumachevache, Zayala Soberova, Odusuchio Mares or Chila Sopa, Babjudo. Chila said,
the first two lines, do not inconsiderately move furniture around noisily. See, this is quite clear. The way when in front of others, if one moves hastily or in a crude manner or in a loud manner, this can be quite disturbing. So here we've been advised to guard ourselves from doing so.
And that's Chila Soba, said the Soba Nala Javalega, Benbeni Jala Shaya, that is this Yungrua, Chesa Diniki, Jala Pashaya, the Guinea, the Pa mi Chigi in the one New Year, and Salmata, Donami, Maja, Dasha Mache, and Pakajo Maju, Dalong, then say you Shavana, and Pajala Jachimboda to Shavana, and Passion Nugoro, Dineza, Tilla Soba, Babjudu, Tilia, Zabada, Ma Baba La Sobada, Jala La Soba Pashabada, Dus Jevala Soba Karchevine, Dashakaya Machebache, and then Jachimboda Yobache, Duchigio Majadan Jeba, Miduros, and Dusian Jadan, Jachimbo Yobache, Dusian Chigio Mares, Miduros, and Dus Shagio Mares Uroda.
I missed it in the translation, so the second line should move furniture around and so forth. So do not inconsiderately move furniture around and so forth. So in other words, whatever one is moving, whether it's you're in the kitchen or whether you're in another room in the house or at your place of work, do not be inconsiderate to others. Do not make noise unnecessarily, but rather be inoffensive and act in a way that does not cause offense.
Susugi Duesegi Kimzevare, Mishandalia, and the Makibo Suyadan, Gangan, Negu or Assembly, Makibo Yoya, that did Yungorva, Dinenza, and Dinigi Makibo, even a Pajadili, Makibo Suyat, and Sugorva, Chazan Konsugi Makiba, Consuliada, or Drachimosu, the Digi Yawachimis of Coronana, Consuli Tibaki Gorva, Dinenza, and Dinigi Subsubche or yes, or
why we need to act in a way that is considerate, that doesn't create a disturbance for others, again, whether it's at the place of home or place of work or just out in community, is that if we act in a way that leads to others getting disturbed, their mind being disturbed will make it much more likely the afflictions will arise. They could end up getting upset because of all this unnecessary noise that they are hearing, and from that they can accumulate non-virtue. So caring for others also includes acting in a way that doesn't cause disturbance.
Goyang Zhao Miye de Sedu, and that Goyang Zhao Miye is now the Gochewa, and Gojevi Kavle dogs and the Denigi, and the Chica Ki Chimbu Yoba Chikyo Maresi or the Goyang Zhao Miye, the Zhao said the Shuk Chimbusi or the Chisam Gochevi Kablin, the Shukchimo Dong, said the Gochea La Sobada, the Negavi Kabla Dinichikyo Maresi, or Goyang Zhao Miye.
And similarly to not moving furniture around noisily, the third line also, do not violently throw doors open. And this would also, of course, include slamming doors shut. Rather, we should move with grace. We shouldn't move in a way that is likely to cause disturbance.
Mi Kakumusumbo Dugalia, Deniki, Neva, Sosugeda, Jigit, Chajiboro Shivine, Desolia Chasing Busuera, so Denishan Nugorva, Chesa Deniki Neva, Deniki Chulam Dige, Denichigio Mares, Morva, that Chulam Dige, Tanaja Subsubject, Sosugi, Shalia, Nugudu, Minutamda, Denishan Shala Nusade, Denichigio Mares and Victor Shalia, nobody, Zemje, and the Sustine. Here
the training can just be as simple as this. Because I value others, I will take care not to disturb them. That is sufficient. One can think a bit further, thinking someone may be taking a nap, someone may still be asleep, someone may be trying to meditate or just read and think. I don't want to disturb them. I don't want to distract them. I don't want them to be upset. I value them. I do not want to hurt them. Therefore, I will do my best not to disturb them.
다들 좀 중세야 돼 가르고 왔으나 자충충 제바도 고고래서 자충충 자침보 매봐 자충충 변은 고야야당 고쳐야 되기네 근데 자충충 기시베네 자충충 안지 레가로 잘할 파샤 수지나 자시라면 자충충 제사 되니게 파서 안예틀 파듯이 tilsoba baba na lawa la soba da ane chala de ya pa su sha la soba da go che da ya wa la soba da jini chi ka bli ya gidi ne cha chung chung ji che ho les ma da cha chen bu du su chi gyo ma le se jom gyung se cha chung wa che jom gyung chi ga wa cha sen de ne gi lung ge je ba shen ya shen ga wa chi bi ge lung je je lam di ane je lam shen gawar jibi juelam jawori chewori eso gawar jaasiri jezan shen gawar migawe gi juelam jene digom shen gawar jibi juelam se lunga gi jueba ani shen gawar jibi jueba di jueba sangbu chewori eso ken jumgyung gawar jaasine denege shen gawar jibi juelam ani sangbu di chewori eso.
The final line gives us our guidance. Rather, always delight in being inconspicuous. This really comes down to that in all our behavior, we should never move hastily in a way that is crude or loud. Rather, we should move inconspicuously, quietly, and in all activities be calm and gentle so that others are pleased and inspired. And knowing that we are acting in a way that is, at the very least, not going to disturb others, not going to upset others, this should bring us great delight. But knowing that we act in a way that may please others, then this too can add to our delight. Continuing again in a similar vein, talking about how to be skillful in our practicing of virtue and how to make our ordinary actions beautiful, the 73rd verse. Herons, cats and burglars, through moving silently and being unobtrusive, achieve their longed-for aims. So too do bodhisattvas from always acting in this way.
Jadi natural path subject lele che du shin ro chin ju gores chisa da chuna bar cha mo che jona de ru ra chu ku marwa chisa de ne ge du shin lele che du gores chisa jila se de am semje ji na shin ji da yue ba da de ju ge semje shan ju ba li ba pe ne ga ji himi na she de himi ro ji pa semje ju ro ba subject le jin du gor ba o di na shin jin du gores in the Chumgun Kumaya, Sura Kumabadi. Chazan Kumaku to the bed in Sabsa, Gilly, Jameva to go mother, daughter to see and Mission Ahuru, Kumaja to Marva, Chazan the nation been a sugar down and Gillette down, and they took a same jam corners Shandai Jua to the bed. Jameva clearly to go rest. Chazan Chumgun Bokuma again, and Mission Jalakuma to the bed, Jamava Shandaki, Hamawash and to go rest. Chazan Duchine, they took a Jamie and Jabjin Joy. Time have I Beckely, Japchins, Japs at the Geligi Roser, Geligi and Dinner George, and Number to be doing to pass, so you don't have to go to Number to be doing Corongeda, Jiwa in the Coron, Sim Jew or somebody, Jai in the Coronge, Yaro, Karaju or something, Kuma in the Coron, Kuma di Ku or Sabina, the name number to be 20 year Corons to go yes.
Herons and cats, we know from their behavior, when they are stalking their prey, they both move in a way that is very conscious, very deliberate. They also make no sound, no disturbance. A heron will do its best not to disturb the water it is treading so carefully in. Because fish, like the mice that the cats are stalking, both take fright easily. Hence, they are well trained in moving in a way that is unobtrusive, in a way that is silent, as we see in the second line. So too with burglars. If a burglar is to have some success, they will enter into a home silently, move in the dark silently, taking care not to bump into anything, not to make any noise, not to wake the sleeping owners. So this is how these beings who aren't usually presented as role models, but this is how they move. The second line, silently and being unobtrusive. And by doing so, they are successful. The heron and cat gets a tasty and needed meal. The burglar will steal to their heart's content. And in this way, they will be successful, but through moving silently and being unobtrusive.
Dinegi da Konzuki de Pirushi, the Suki Dinegi, Koransuki, Java, Jameva, Chapsing, Roshin Dushi, and this Koranku and Dadi to Gores. And in Ashida, to be a Tadu, Dishin G, Tuba said that Tuba Chidan, Tuba said, Dajumba Loko, Chisan Dajumba, Sangye, Tubasi, the Nyomba Pacha, the Jeba Pambaza, Sangye Jumden, Tuba Jumden, the Lagore. Then I knew Dajumba, Raya Dajumba, Tubasi or Tubasi, Chisan Nyomba, Sabana Jeba Pamba in Nyomba, Tele Tuba, they call Manselmer. Tuba get Mara Gabnan, Tuba said Tobi, Tupsia Roa, near Tugres, Tubarua. Yomo Bajale, Bangba in Tarwa is the Tuba, Silver. Chisa, that did the changes and bas Tuba city that Yomo Bagi, Dutch, Denigi, Tuba said that did the changes and by Yomo Bonga Chabada, Chesada Rangda, Shen Yi, Nane, Rangdunia, Rangdun the Pa Dorje, and Dele, the Dorje, Shendon, so one and you was a Tuba said, instead of Tubas. Chisan Tuba, Tuba, Tado, Tishin Che, said Tuba changes and Namgi, Gidi, and Lungagi, Juba, and Bed, Jisangboche, Shengi, don't Duchin, Shengi, don't Duyalia, Shen Pando do it, you do, and Shen Lungangi, Juba, the Gidine, Duchin, the Sambochi, or the essay.
So these first 3 lines are an illustration, and we take the meaning of that illustration and apply it now in the 4th line. So too do bodhisattvas from always acting in this way. So again, I explained the word here translated as bodhisattva, because there are some differences in published books. Is usually in the Sanskrit is that of muni, and muni muni means an arhat. It's a foe destroyer. Usually it's used in relation to a Mahayana arhat, a Buddha. But in this context, it refers to those striving to become a muni, a bodhisattva. So the bodhisattva is the correct translation, but that is the meaning of the word or the usage of the word here, because in some translations it's a little different. So too do bodhisattvas from always acting in this way. So bodhisattvas have been long striving to subdue their mind, and thereby their body and speech is subdued. Therefore, they will achieve their longed-for aims, in other words, to benefit others, through acting in a way that is gentle, that is deliberate, that is thought out, and that does not cause offense, but in fact inspires others. So this then is how we the meaning to take from this verse.
Rangdun dan Shendun Samdane, Rangdun Yinbo, Shendun Samdane, Denegi Nibo Denje, Rangdun de Dorwa in Zada, Rangdun Samlot Pa Ma Bamba in Zada, Meva Kagawa in Zada, Tuba said Rangdun Samlot de Tuba said. Nibo Den Tuba said Gura, Tubas. Yana Tuba said, Tuba Numo Basha de Chebalo, Tuba San Yu Jemnindi, San Copan Toba Chibi, Lam, Nyamsu Lam, Janshu Sem, Nagulet, then you can Janshu Sem Basse, Tuba Chebas, Tuba said, Denelia, Jana Chasha Chagore. Tuba said, Topja San Yokopan, Tuba San Yelecha, the Tobi Tubian Yelam Yamlet, Janshu Sem Yamlen Cheting and Gaza, Janshu Sem Batiki Sachik, Chikche. And Tuba said, Tuba Rangdunge somebody Dorje, Dele Tuban, Janshu Sem Basse.
So this word translated here as bodhisattva, usually that of muni, and in Sanskrit, and what Geshe has explained, is usually refers to a foe destroyer, usually again, that of the Mahayana arhat, the Buddha, or a Buddha. What this word muni, what it would be in English, is the able one, or the capable one. And what it really comes down to is someone who has abandoned striving for their own wishes, but is rather striving to fulfill the wishes of others. So that's the meaning here of bodhisattva. A Mahayana arhat, a Buddha, would be the one who has fulfilled that goal. But here it refers to the one striving to achieve that goal of not for their own, striving to fulfill their own wishes, but the wishes of all beings, therefore striving to become a Buddha.
Ana dundala dangan zu diring shegi de ji tik tang bo ti ro da won we tian zam de lu la ju le sha de sem jen nam den ju be chi yi xin ji ne lu su gyu ru se di dunda khar song ro se ne a zu lu di ya sang ji s ko hon to wal che ba la tin zhong ge tin re zhuo ko tin re tin yin ba de lu din de le tin ne an ga zu ge Sanji Koban to be Lamnium Chasan, G2 Tin Kabachi in body, how go Tin Telatine, Sanji Koban, Top 2 Gore, Sembigi Ducine, Duna Shinche Ducine, Lupa, Moisinche, the name was in Chene, Semja Tamji Dondala, and the Sanji Koban, Topa Chegore, Chesandi, Topa Jabala, Jansim Yukune, Lange, and Jam Passion to Yamne Duce, Semja Tamje, Sanji Kopan, Go, Dico Dondala. And Tapcho to you by the San Yokoba in Resha, Jesadi, the Insa San Yokoba, Jinego, Tobra Jawa, and Big to sometimes San Yokoba, Tobra Chegore, said, Dondadi, 60 Dondadi Sungore.
Summarize then what we've looked at tonight, starting at the first verse, the 70th verse. This verse, maybe I'll just read the English. Regard the body as a boat, a simple support for going and returning. Transform the body into that which fulfills every wish in order to accomplish the welfare of each sentient being. The meaning is, independence on this very body, this ideal vessel to cross the ocean of suffering, we should set ourselves on this journey with a clear understanding that whilst we are on this journey, our task is to benefit others, to help others as we go. And the way that we power this boat across the ocean of suffering, and the way that we benefit others as we are crossing this ocean, is we develop the qualities of love, compassion, and bodhicitta, and train in the 6 perfections, developing them. And when we've gone beyond suffering and attained the bodies of a Buddha, that is then when we return. And we return to help all beings, to become a wish-fulfilling jewel. Having become a wish-fulfilling jewel for them, a Buddha, we return in order to accomplish their welfare.
Rang Shanlia Pembe Sempi Kune Lange and the Tados do that one Rang Luki, Namuti, Modon de Pep, no don't knock what on training the member chair and zoom down in the doing all the essay. And the day Nashin and draw some Tamjelia, Nivi, Sambi, Kune, Samba, Samnataje, and Shanlia, 6 Subodang, Mebajet, and Jangbodang, and Six Jambota, Jambukone to share what he has, Geshe to share what he has at Sundua.
To summarize the 71st verse, having control of myself like that, I will always present a smiling expression, completely abandon angry scowls and sullen looks, and be a sincere friend to all migrators. So the first line, having control of myself like that, means setting out now. I will strive to develop love and compassion so that these virtuous minds become dominant, and in that way virtuous minds dominate me, have control over me, and thereby I will relate to others with genuine warmth, genuine tenderness. And whenever I am feeling some disturbance inside, the joy that I feel from encountering others will overcome all such inner challenges, and thereby I will be able to be a sincere friend to all.
Natila Soba Babjo de Jada, Jebra Midur Ross, Goyan Jado Miete, Tado Jumjung, Gavaraja City, Natila Soba Ma Baba Tila Baba, Ya Saba La Soba, Jala La Soba, Shaba La Soba, and the Goche and Gojaba La Soba, Tinichi Kablaya, Dachimbo Mebache, Andusine, Jambutaniche, Warriors, get the Dachunche, and the Shen Gavarchi Bigi, and the Jelam Sambuchin to share warriors.
The 72nd verse, do not inconsiderately move furniture around noisily. Also do not violently throw doors open. Rather always delight in being inconspicuous. Holding others dear, valuing them, keep their wishes at the forefront of your heart. And when moving around, whether alone or with others, do so in a way that is gentle, that is quiet, a way that causes no disturbance, but a way as if you were not present, in other words, inconspicuous. Then this becomes an expression of genuine humility that arises when valuing others, wanting them to be happy, not wanting to add to their burden of suffering, but to be a force of good in their lives, then one will move in a way that is considerate.
āndā chūlam yāgū chēbāi nā dā sōsū yu dāndā chūp tūgō rē sācī nā chūgyār jīla chōmgūn tā dāmiyā chab chūn chōwā yu ngōmbara dūbī dūngūn chūp tūbiyā tātū tīshīn chē sēdū dā dā chūgyār dā jīwā lā sōpa chōmgūn lā sōpa kē dāmiyā bā chāmbū chīnā shabni chabni chōdū ān sōsū yu kumā kuyā dā kārīn dāndā chūp tūgū duwās dī nā shīn dā janshū sēmbā namjīs tūpa janshū sēmbā tūpa namjī lūngā yu chōpa bā jambū yu tōne ānā chī kunlua sangpo, sem jamba, janshi simyu kunya langa chi lunga ki chi choba jambi tohne zay dini ki shendu gyachimbu chukuwa re say chi sungkar tadu, chi tupi tadu tishin chi say di.
In the 73rd verse, herons, cats and burglars, through moving silently and being unobtrusive, achieve their longed-for aims. So too do bodhisattvas from always acting in this way. So here, just like we have these examples of those in our world, both human and animal, who move in a way that is silent, that is unobtrusive. We should follow that example, but as a genuine expression of valuing others, of caring for others, and then move in a way that's gentle and considerate, knowing that this is the skillful way to achieve your longed-for aims. This is how bodhisattvas move in the world. They are not rowdy or inconsiderate, but caring for others, they move gently around them.
덴델이야 덴데자다 기위 semja 탐지 산요고바 투비 쳐도 기위 냠내 야고 제고래 제네 산요고바 토바 제고래스 데네기 냠내 제발이야 륜하게 쪄바디게 상보 신가월 제비게 륜하게 쪄바 상보 냠내 도 제고래 전시선반은 유도스 난고래스 돈나디스무도하다.
Summary then of tonight's class in brief is recognizing this preciousness of our human rebirth. Commit once again to strive for Buddhahood. And just like bodhisattvas who care for others so, we should act with around others in such a way, relate to them with warmth and tenderness, act around them in a way that's considerate. Then thank you. We can conclude here for tonight. Thank you.